My name is Virginia, and I've always had a big interest in history in general and following the Disney things. We really didn't discover Disney until our children were in high school, before we made our first trip to Disney World. But I think it was basically once we became interested, there were just so many facets to be explored. Actually, I think it was probably my husband's interest first. He always felt that he could go to Disney, either Disneyland or Disney World, and turn off the pressures of work. Our most joyful moment was the first time we took our oldest grandchild on his first trip there. We took him alone, and after that, we decided they had to be 4 years old and potty trained, my husband said, before they could go. We had just a lot of fun family times down there. I think probably the thing that makes me realize that Disney is important to the whole family came after my husband died. He had a wonderful collection of Disney wristwatches, kind of like this one. And he had a number of pocket watches. And I have 5 grandsons. And every one of the grandsons, plus my sons, each latched on to a number of the pocket watches in particular. My youngest grandson is a freshman at Drake this year. He sent me a picture at Halloween going to a party where he had one of the pocket watches with the chain on it that he wore as part of his costume because they were doing a 20s theme for the party. A lot of our Disney artwork that I've been trying to think about, what do I want to do with this? My grandkids have taken a number of the pieces because they really like them. So I figure that's good. I think my favorite is probably a Cinderella doll that Marie Osmond designed. The doll is a beautiful one. It's the prototype of some that were done later for general, but this one has all Swarovski crystals and that kind of thing. And on the back of the neck, Marie has signed it. When we got our certificate of authentication, she had written on it, "Yes, Virginia, there is a Santa Claus, and I think you're married to him." So that's probably my very favorite item. I think it's always very difficult to give up things that have been a part of one's life for so many years. But by the same token, when it's passed on to family members, it's wonderful because it's fun to go and see the things in their homes and being used. We enjoyed them so much over the years. It's nice to know that someone else is going to continue to enjoy them. Well, the Disneyana conventions are ones with people who are crazy about Disney and not afraid to come and spend money to enjoy and experience. They were always done right after Labor Day, and they alternated for many years between Disney World one year and Disneyland the next. And it was simply people who were willing to come and stay at Disney and have meetings, hear speeches, and it just was a really fun time to meet a lot of people from really all over the country. A lot of the friends that we made, they have been here to visit us. And our friendships lasted for a long time. Many of them are no longer alive, but It was just a good chance to sit down and have fun and talk about Disney things. One of my friends that we met, the couple were childless, but she was deaf. We didn't know American Sign Language, so her husband did most of the translating. But now, strictly with texting, I hear from her a lot. At one of the Disneyana conventions, they sold the blocks on the sidewalk in front of the Magic Kingdom. We ended up with one right by Roy Disney and his wife. Every time we went, our grandchildren had to have their picture taken with the blocks so we could see how they had grown since the last visit. And we were so disappointed 3 years ago when we went to Disney. They've taken those away. I had a good friend who told me she was at Disney with her family, and her son said, "Oh, look, there's someone from Iowa has a block here." And she looked and it was ours. And she said, "Not only are they from Iowa, I know them." So I guess that kind of thing means a lot when I think back about it. One of the early Disneyanas, they offered special activities that you had to pay more for, but one that they offered was to have breakfast in Walt's apartment above the fire station. I called my husband at work and said, "Should I call right now?" And he said yes. So we actually were in the first group that ever got to tour the private apartment. We had breakfast at his apartment, and then they took us to his offices on Main Street at Disneyland. And he really had two offices. He had a working office and then one that he used to greet honorary people that were there. Then they put us on his private train car, the Lily Bell, and let us ride around the park. And that's where we met the couple where she is deaf. Mark and Alice Davis were our very favorite early animators. His wife actually did a lot of the costuming for Small World and the Pirates of the Caribbean, and they were just delightful people. We went to Walt's favorite restaurant and they had dinner there. Alice was telling us that that was where she met Walt for the first time. She and Mark had just been recently married. She was already working for Disney, but Walt didn't realize it. And they met at the Shamrock one night, and Walt told her she should really apply to Disney for a costuming job. And she thought that was so funny that she already was there. She also told us something I thought was quite fascinating about the pirates' costuming. She said that, of course, the costs of the costumes was not inexpensive. And she had suggested that they should make duplicates of everything because there would be wear and tear. Nobody thought it was a good idea except her, but they went ahead and did it anyway. And before the ride opened, they had a fire. So many of the costumes burned that they were just very grateful she had seen to it that they had the extra costumes ready so they could open on time. Right after Mark Davis died, we were at the convention, and one of the items going up for the auction was a big, huge piece of artwork from the Pirates of the Caribbean with the characters and some of the words from the songs and so on. And it was the #1 publisher's proof. My husband loved the Pirates ride, and he was determined he was going to buy it. They put the item up for the auction, got the winning bid. The auctioneer said that he had it. And all of a sudden, the auctioneer, who I think had been drinking maybe during the evening, said he was reopening the sale because there was another person who still wanted to bid on it. But the auctioneer said, sold for the same price to the woman. So he had sold one piece of artwork to two different people. People in the auction were very, very angry about the whole thing. Ultimately, the auction said, we're not sure what we'll do, but we will take care of the first buyer, but the piece will go to the second buyer. And it turned out that they gave us the number one from the archives, and we did not have to pay for it. They just gave it to us. Alice Davis, she was very upset about the whole thing. So that Tree of Life over there, she gave us as a gift, sent it to us unexpected. It's probably the most treasured piece of artwork we have. It's an artist's proof of one that Walt had some of his original animators do a Tree of Life for his Sunday night TV show. So that was probably one of our most interesting experiences. Probably one of my very favorite activities, or used to be, the afternoon teas that were served either at the English Pavilion in Epcot or at the Grand Floridian. We did the one at the Grand Floridian so many times that the waitresses got to know us. And when we came in, they'd say, oh, you're here from Iowa, type thing. And those were just fun experiences. The last time I was there was a year ago on spring break. I was at Disney with one of my sons and his wife and his children. We were standing in line for a free bucket of popcorn and I fainted. And when I came to, they were saying, do you know what day it is? Do you know who the president is? I was so fortunate because the couple behind us in line were from Vermont, and he was an EMT, she was an RN, and they jumped in and took over. I ended up spending several days in the hospital in Orlando, came home with 8 staples down the back of my head. It was not my favorite experience at Disney by any means, but I was very impressed with how quickly they had help there for us. Parks themselves are a wonderful family experience. Even at our age, and when we went without our grandkids and our kids, we had a delightful time. There's always something new and different. I think the training of their staff was so good. They were concerned about customer service, keeping everyone happy, and as it has expanded, I think it's lost a lot of that personal touch. I do miss that aspect of the parks. I always think back to Walt's quote that says, to think it all started with a mouse. And I think he was the beginning of the Disney empire and is still a very important part of it. When he was still alive back at Disneyland.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
Have you stayed in any of the hotels?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, for one every time, or do you have a favorite? Oh, I feel like we should add this.
We should add this on camera. Yeah. Now, like, just hearing your stories, I was like, wow,
there's
you have
so
like
much.
so many good
There's
stories.
so much to this.
My,
I was intrigued.
yeah, I do have a fun story, though. I have a Disney friend out in Maryland who had 6 children, and they went to the parks a lot in California. Her kids never showed her this for several years till after it happened, but when they were still pretty much all in high school type situation, 2 of them got off the ship, the boat, the pirate's boat, up into the jailhouse scene at the end of the ride, and then jumped back into the boat. And she was just mortified to think her kids would do that. And I thought, that'd be a little bit brave to be willing to jump out of the boat and do all that.